See this myth a lot about Albanese and other Labour Party politicians float around, and I think he gets the whole picture wrong. As put by Labour member Nicholas Daniel, Labour's Anthony Albanese is not a friend of Australia's left, and he never was. And I highly recommend going and reading this article. It's got some great stuff in there, but it essentially casts a lot of, and I'd argue warranted, doubt on this image that's garnered around Albanese. As Daniel says in the article, Labour's New South Wales right and left factions were basically at war with each other in the 1980s, like Labour right heavyweights literally tried to hire assassins to kill left-wing candidates, and Albo came about as a leader of this new left-wing sub-faction which basically collaborated with that same right to deselect grassroots left-wing candidates from running in seats. A notable example of this was when they purged Brian Gowdry because he spoke up against the party's plan to privatise electricity. So Albo was always this sort of slimy co-opting progressive causes, but then when push came to shove, he was doing factional wheeling and dealing with their opponents behind closed doors. And so in my view, Albo is where he is and is doing what he's doing because of who he always was and is, and not because he's some kind of good soul that got caught up. And this sort of personalized look on politics is kind of the bigger problem. Albo doesn't do what he does because of his personality. No, he's a figurehead of a political apparatus which responds to the material conditions of the time. And no other example is more emblematic of this phenomena than Gough Whitlam. Everyone knows Whitlam as the peacenik, super transformative leader, but when Whitlam was first elected to be Labour leader, he was actually seen as the more conservative option compared to his predecessor and opponent in the caucus. He came from the Labour right. In fact, he initially began to distance himself from opposing the Vietnam War and US imperialism. He was literally sponsored on trips by the State Department to go to the US. Academic Ashley Lavelle has a great book called Opposition Vanishing, covering the period of Whitlam in opposition. But what changed Whitlam from being this sort of party apparatchik was the huge swell in opposition towards the Vietnam War and an increasingly militant trade union movement. This is what made Whitlam such a threat to the US. He represented the genuine popular mood in Australia at the time, which posed a decent threat within the imperial core. Now, what that says to me is that rather than Albanese being too scared of being Whitlam to call out the US for its aggression, it says to me more that there isn't this popular movement with a loud enough voice to do what the anti-Vietnam War movement did and what the trade union movement did. And the key is investing in those things, is prioritizing those things rather than a politician or even a political party. We shouldn't be looking at the party as an end, but rather we should be trying to build external blocks of power to force the party to change.